Hey there. Good afternoon. It is Tuesday, July 9th, 2024. It is the afternoon, and I am that developer dad. I didn't get to stream this morning because I had real life stuff that required my attention, but here I am this afternoon. Just to recap what we've been up to, I run a homebrewed Dungeons and Dragons campaign, and my players are constantly asking me for details about the various NPCs that they'll meet on their journeys. And I'm really bad at ad-libbing and coming up with answers to those questions on the fly when I'm sitting around the table. So I figured, hey, I'm a software programmer. Let's make an application that can help me answer questions like that at a moment's notice. So far, we've got our dice bag component done. We wrapped that up yesterday. I created a test harness console app so that I can type in at the command line, roll me 3d6 with advantage and do it 10,000 times, and it'll summarize all of the different results and print out like statistical analyses. I can ask it to run it 6 times and it'll show me the results, things like that. That's all checked into the GitHub repository for the project, and that's linked from my homepage at www.thatdeveloperdad.com. So today we are going to start defining what a townsperson non-player character actually is in terms of software code. So let's switch my screen and turn off mail, because I don't need that open and beeping in my ears. And here we have our GitHub project, and we have a to-do task called create the contracts for the TownsfolkManager. Let's pull this guy over into in progress and see what it says. We can see that this is an architecture, a coding, and a documentation activity. So we need to design the output class for this TownsfolkManager. We need to design what operations that manager class is going to have. And we'll figure out what inputs we'll supply and how they'll be provided. And then we're going to add comments to the manager's methods to describe the processes. We're not actually going to implement those processes today. We just want to get an idea of what each of them means. So let's get into our solution. We want to go to code, right click, open in Visual Studio Code. And I was doing a little bit more work last night just to wrap up the dice engine portion. I created a README file for that component, and all of that is checked in to that GitHub repository that I mentioned just a moment ago. Let's go back a couple of skips. We'll go to the code, and this should be clonable, and you'll get the whole kit and caboodle. The engine lives in here, and you can see that we've got a README file that explains all of the public artifacts that live inside that namespace, along with some usage tips right here, some sample code. I've tried to take pretty good care of people that are going to be using this. We'll pop back out here and shrink that down. We don't need it. So we can close this. Here's our welcome screen. Let's hop into the managers. All right, the very first thing we're going to need to do is we're going to need to add a contracts folder to this. And that's where we put all the things that are shared with the outside world. Let's add a new file, and it's going to be an interface called I TownsfolkManager. And just super quick, describes the behavior of a component that allows us to generate, store, and retrieve townsfolk for our game worlds. Excuse me. So the first thing we're going to need is, well, we want to generate townspeople. So generate townsperson. And this needs a return type, and we're not sure what that return type is going to look like yet. So we'll just say object for now. Or we could add a new file, call it a class, and just say townsperson. There we go. And townsperson describes a non-player character in our game world. Includes properties that are applicable only to the people the party may meet on their travels that usually engage in non-combat interactions. So we've got a townsperson. Very good. Creates a new townsperson and populates its properties with randomly generated or chosen values. Now, what else do we want to do with a townsfolk generator? Well, we're going to need to save a townsperson. And when we save them, we probably want to get back some path to access that townsperson that we just stored or placed in some storage medium. So string save townsperson. All right. And let's give this a summary. Stores the provided townsperson instance in a data storage location. The NPC instance to save, and it returns the location of the saved data. Could be a URI or a file path, depending on the implementation. And then we need to load a townsperson. So when we load a townsperson, we're going to pass in the location and return not a townsfolk manager, but a townsperson. There's only one S. We'll also want to I'm sure retrieve a list of townspeople. Townspersons. And I think that's enough for now. Retrieves the identified townsperson instance from the configured storage location. Returns a list of all townsperson instances currently stored in the configured storage location. All right. So we're going to be identifying some objects and concepts and dependencies that we haven't thought of yet. And we'll handle those as we get to them. For now, let's create a default. We've already got an empty class here. I'm going to rename this file to TownsfolkManager. There we go. We've got to rename it here. TownsfolkManager. And it's going to implement my TownsfolkManager. Save. Now we are using, it looks like this thing has forced us into using top level statements, and I don't love that. Really not a fan of that. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. townsfolkManager. I bet this thing wants to use implicit usings. Let's turn that off. Save. And we got to implement the interface. I want to come up here. Whoops. Let's make sure our TownsfolkManager dot contracts Grab this, go all the way to the bottom, paste all the way to the top, indent. That's significantly cleaner. Good. Let's put townsperson in the same. Dot contracts. Cut that. Paste it. And we need to indent. Save that and come back here. We can add using game tools dot townsfolkManager dot contracts. Contracts, not contacts. There we go. So listing, loading, saving, I'm not really interested in solving those yet because those are going to require some data access or some resource access. And when we get to that, we're going to be implementing this NPC access component, where we'll be starting to define this NPC access component over here. And there's some thinking and some planning that we're going to need to do for that. But since we've identified that as a task, let's open our project in a new tab. Come over here and define the public contracts for NPC access component. And we're just going to leave that as is in draft format. I can come back in later and flesh that out. We're also going to need to define the public contracts for the rule set access component. And we're going to start talking about things in the rule sets this afternoon, but probably only at a very high abstract level. For now, let's just go back to our TownsfolkManager. Now, generate townsperson. What does that actually mean? I'm going to leave my throw new system.not implemented exception in place here, just because we have no idea of what we're doing yet. And we haven't defined what it means to generate a townsperson. But we know for sure we are going to need an instance of the townsperson class, generated NPC. And let's go ahead and create that right now. And then down at the bottom, we'll return our generated NPC. All right, and we have a little bit of code here. Add a new project. And let's keep using XUnit. I like that one. Tests/test project. This is going to be game tools dot townsfolkManager dot tests. Default directory, source tools, tests. I think that's right. Create the project. And let's make absolutely certain that that got stuffed in the right place. So we've got our game tool solution. Here's our tests. Good. And let's just kick this out a little bit more. Game tools.diceengine.tests, townsfolkmanager.tests. And in here, we've got our project. Good. Pop this open. Main. Uh-oh. Let's create a new branch right now. Feature / create townsfolk manager. Artifacts. There we go. Now when I check in, it's going to check in against my feature branch rather than the actual, rather than the main branch, which we don't want. So let's rename this from unit test1.cs townsfolk manager tests. Go. Open it up. And I'm going to grab this just because it's very close to the text that I want to paste. And our fact, townsfolk manager test generate townsperson expect non-null. Townsfolk generator, townsfolk manager, test object is a new townsfolk manager. I need to add a project reference to the manager project. And the darn thing is using implicit usings. Get out of here. Item group using include, X unit, project reference include, okay. I really don't like that. I don't like it at all. And these top level statements, I got to do some digging, man. Like, this was something that was added with dotNet 7 or 8. And I feel like it's a convenience feature that they thought was going to improve readability, but it might because it shifts all of the indentation to the left, but I also find that it does bad things to our ability to organize our projects using game tools dot townsfolkmanager dot contracts. Okay. And where's the townsfolk manager declared? Just inside there. Good. I think we also need to say using game tools dot townsfolk manager. It says it's unused, but that's rubbish. Excuse me. Arrange. Act. Assert. I don't always add these to my unit tests. Townsperson NPC assert assert.notNull NPC, and that's really all we are concerned about with this test. So let's build everything. Buildaroo. And it's doing its thing. It's chugging. It's chugging along. Okay, good. Game tools, dice engine tests. I'm not concerned with those. Let's build the townsfolk test thingy. Can we refresh our view? Sometimes our test projects don't always show up automatically. Can I run it? How about this one? Nope. No automated run there. What's different? Let's take a look at our dice tray tests. I don't see a test class or any attributes on there. Okay. It's using system. Debug, start new instance. Yeah. Come on. I don't want to rerun the last run. Refresh all of my tests in the solution. And once again, Visual Studio Code's integration with itself is sometimes leaves a little bit to be desired. Okay, here's our projects. Here's our packages. What about this? Disable, enable. Is test project true? Here's all that stuff. What is different? Let's hide that. And let's split to the right. Just to see, let's close our dice engine tests. Here's the class. Close all that stuff down. I want to see this one. Split right. Here's that. All right. Microsoft Net SDK, that's all the same. Is packable, yeah. These are virtually identical. Okay, there is no reason that should not be showing up in my test runner area. Filter, nope. Collapse all, view as list. Can we view as list? Oh, I don't want to do that. I want to view it as a tree. Show output. There's that. Refresh, please. Okay. instead of fighting with this, let's just turn it off and turn it back on again. Force it to reload the project. Excuse me, code. Reopen in Visual Studio Code. Yeah. Outline, it's thinking. It's the workspace. Excuse me. And the Solution Explorer is loading. Here's that. Testing. Come on. Let's build. Nope. Okay. Let's build this one. Sometimes. Okay, I don't have a bunch of extra stuff running, so it's not like my system's particularly bogged down. Hey, it showed up. Look at that. Let's run those. There's only one test to run. And it's going to pass just fine because our code isn't actually doing anything yet. We just want to make sure that our manager class is behaving as we want it to. Now we can do what I planned to do. Question. What do we need to know about a townsperson? Well, they need a name. D&D used to refer to different types of beings that would live in their worlds as races, but they're pivoting to use species language, and I'm for that. So let's say species. Many of them will have a profession. A background. And then, because sometimes I might have somebody at my table that likes to be aggressive with all of the world characters that they might meet. Game stats. We're gonna have to give these people some hit points and some other things, an armor class, some ability scores, stuff like that. So I think we've just defined another class, but I don't think putting this into our townsfolk manager is a great idea because player characters also have stats. The creatures that we build into encounters have these game stats. And the nature of these stats, while they're almost always similar to each other from one game system to another, the details of those stats vary widely from, say, D&D 5e to even the original basic set with the red box and the blue box and all of those. The original Advanced Dungeons and Dragons had completely different, far more detailed statistics. Pathfinder 2 Reboot has similar but significantly different game stats from Pathfinder 2, which was actually pretty close to D&D 5e, but not quite. You get the picture. Game stats, I think, needs to have a fairly high level of abstraction that we can modify based on the rule set. Should this be defined within a specific implementation for the rule set concept? That's a question to meditate on. We're not going to worry about it just yet. But they have a name, a species. Now, names usually in fantasy worlds are a function of the species or culture. Escape, indent, stop it. So name is going to be derived from their species. Stop that. Appearance is also driven by species. Now it keeps wanting to put in height, and it's not wrong. Height will be ranged variance from base height. Weight, again, ranged variance from base weight. And it's asking for age, gender, hair, color, hair length, no, style. Now, not every species has hair. Some species have scales, some species have feathers, some species have fur. And yes, we are going to be defining all of these rough generation concepts per species as we define those within a rule set. Eye color, so our name, appearance, age, gender, hair color, hairstyle, eye color. Okay, yeah. Now profession, anybody can be anything. Does not follow from species. May follow from background. Probably not. However, profession does naming lists. Profession does give us profession names not ability scores, silly thing. Titles. It also provides some skills. Personality. Informed by background. And where did I thought I had listed background somewhere. Background. Background name. Personality seeds. Informed by background. We are formed by where we came from, but not I really wish it had stopped trying to suggest this stuff, but not constrained by that. So personality is informed by background. Affected by life events. And I'm going to borrow a concept from the White Wolf games. Each character has a nature, what they're like in private, and a demeanor, what they're like in public. Now, the Copilot service I'm using is trying to suggest things like moralities and beliefs and so on and so forth. I think if we're just generating a blacksmith that they run into, I don't know that we need to get into that level of detail. And for these attributes, for the personality and the background, we're going to roll for keyword attributes. Further description is going to come from some other operation if we decide to bring a large language model into this. Background, selected from a list of choices. Personality seeds. The background may also come with, it's not affected by life events. It may provide some skills or proficiencies. I would say the profession would also come with a length of career, and is different from adventuring class. Not all NPCs will have this. Some will, most won't. Probably the guy that owns the magic shop with the very expensive magic items that my more bloodthirsty party members think they can pressure into giving them the magic wand of fireballs for nothing. That guy might be a retired adventuring wizard who's, stared down dragons. Um, the guy in the kitchen at the tavern may have just been a cook for their entire lives. The blacksmith might be a retired fighter or rogue or whatever, but not everybody that they're going to meet is a retired adventurer with character class levels. But if present, will affect game stats, skills, and proficiencies. We're listing out an awful lot of nouns and an awful lot of random lists and all of that stuff. And I don't know that we need all of these details for a basic generator. I think we definitely want the information about the species and how that affects their appearance and their name. I think we definitely want to pick backgrounds and professions. And personality, that might be something we leave to later. And adding adventuring classes, I think, even though it's a great idea, I think we're going to, if we decide to expand on this into other tools for game mastering, I think we're going to want to do something a little bit more robust for adventuring class. And that's going to also descend from game stats. So let's for keyword attributes. X, I'm going to bring that down here. Personality details. We'll add that. Everything below this line, we're going to prioritize out. MVP. Product. Yeah. Okay. Now the personality we're going to roll for keyword attributes. Very good. So let's start with, well, we'll start by saving this. And let's open up our townsperson contract. Whoops, don't need to right click. And I'm just going to pop this off to the right so that we've got it to refer to. I'll hide my Explorer view and our townsperson. Well, they're gonna have a name. Prop string name. All right. We don't need this get set stuff. It's going to be public string name. Get set, get rid of that. Goodbye. So name is check. Let's go with given public string family name, public string full name. And I don't like that style of string concatenation, so we're going to use interpolation. There we go. All right, so we've got our given name, our family name, our full name. Prop string species. I just realized that species also have some species have subspecies. And we want get set. But not all species will have a subspecies. So we're going to make that nullable. Now, appearance, height, weight, age, gender, hair color, hairstyle, eye color. Eye count. There are some species that have a different number of eyes than 2. We also have, not face shape, but body style. Some species are bipedal. Some species slither about on snake-like or slimy blobs like slugs. Some species might have 6 legs and 2 arms and a spider butt. All of these things are attributes of appearance. And what does that tell me? Well, these properties don't just apply to NPC characters in a specific set of game rules. What does that say? That says we have a new archetypal, or it's not a new, but it's a new to this solution archetypal component. So we're going to add a new solution folder, and we're going to call it framework. And I know there are a ton of application architects out there, and senior developers that absolutely hate the idea of frameworks and deep inheritance hierarchies and all of that stuff. If you use this concept conservatively, it can really save your bacon. If you use it as a junk drawer where you put all the stuff that doesn't fit anywhere else, it turns into a disaster. We're going to add a class library. And we're going to call it GameTools.Framework. It's going to go into GM Tools source framework, GameTools.Framework. Yep, I like that. Make it so. First thing I'm going to do before I start messing around is turn off this implicit usings nonsense. Disable. Goodbye. All right, now our framework is going to have a folder called concepts. Our concepts, we're going to add a new class file. Whoops. We want a class, yes. And it is going to be called so we've got characters. Yeah. Everything in a role-playing game that is alive can be considered a character. Character appearance. Boom. Let's get rid of class 1 here. We don't need it. It can go away. Yes, I really want to delete it. Let's bring character appearance over here. Now, I do not want to inherit other things from this appearance class. I want to use this appearance class as a reusable part of other kinds of characters. So what we're going to do so that we cannot create subclasses of character appearance is we're going to make this into a sealed class. And that means nothing can inherit it. We can instantiate it. We can use it, all of that stuff. But we cannot create another class that extends character appearance. I'm going to copy this and I'm going to paste it. So we have public int height height in centimeters. And I'm going to use centimeters because I can fairly easily convert between an integral value for centimeters and feet and inches. Public int weight. Let's use metric again because we can convert between kilograms and pounds fairly easily. Public int age years. Public int gender. That's not an integer. We're going to make that into a string. Get set. And some people might want to use an enum for gender, but in fantasy worlds, gender can sometimes literally be a construct, especially in the case of golems. Public string. Oh gosh. Hair, scales, feathers. What are all those? Those are gonna ask Copilot. Gotta ask the AI. I need a single word concept that contains the ideas of hair, feather, scales. Scales. Integument. Okay. And since we're using an SAT word, integument, I think that's going to become an enum. Keratin is what they're formed of. Add new file. Come on. Enum. And it's going to be integument kinds. None. Hair. Scales. Feathers. This is going to be an integument kind. Get set public string integument color public string integument style. Okay, and we got those covered. Now, because we're using an SAT word, yes, it could be bark. That's actually a mighty fine point. 9 of 12 over in the chat said, you know, it could be bark. Let's go ahead and add it. Bark. Bark it is. In the case of treants or plant folk. All right, so integument kind. Because we're using an SAT word, integument refers to the body adornments that naturally occur on various species. There we go. We can always add more. Okay, and 9 of 12 over in the chat just said your integumentary system. I want to copy this. How do I copy it? Come on. Copy. Can I control C it? Let's try to come over here and paste it. And we'll add a little bit of white space there. Okay. So there's that. Integument kind. Let's save it. We can close that. So we should probably add some other. We should make those nullable. Integument kind. What kind of covering has the character got on their body? Example, hair, scales, feathers, bark, none. And what color are the integuments? What color are, what style? How are the integuments styled? Public string. Let's call it skin color. No, let's call it complexion. Complexion, get set. Public string. Body markings. Get set. This refers to body adornments such as tattoos, scars, and so on. Okay, so we've got height, weight, age in years, gender, complexion, body markings, integument specifications, public string, body style, bipedal, amorphous, winged, octopedal, etc. None. No, none refers to the integument. I'm assuming that everybody has a complexion in the game world. It's likely. Oh, uh, spectral could well be a body style. And let's see. Public int, I count, get set, public string, I color, get set, public string, description. Save all that. What are all these warnings about? Yes, yes, yes. Okay. So it wants me to set up default values for all these string properties. So we're going to add a constructor. No parameters. We're not going to mess with that. Knight of 12's over in my chat saying now she wants to play Baldur's Gate 3. So we're going to say gender equals string dot empty. Complexion is string dot empty. Body markings. Integument kind, none. Let's assume nothing. Color is string dot empty. Empty. Habitat. I don't even have a habitat property. What are you doing? Sometimes Copilot tries to be extra helpful and just makes a fool of itself. So integument color, integument style, those are both nullable. I don't have to set those. Body style, eye color, and description. Body style. Eye color. And description. There we go. We've just eliminated all the warnings there, I believe. We still have some problems. Non-nullable property, given name, family name, species. Okay, we'll get to that in a minute. But we've defined our character appearance. And let's go ahead and add this GameTools.framework as a dependency to our TownsfolkManager. We'll just make a project reference. GameTools.framework. There we go. And over here in our contracts, public character appearance, and we need a get and a set, but we're going to make the set private. Character appearance, is that what I called it? Yes, it is. I'm going to need to import, come on, using GameTools.framework. There we go. There we go. And we're going to leave this off for now. As soon as I have created a default constructor for it. Given name equals string dot empty. Family name string dot empty. Species string dot empty. And appearance equals a new character appearance. Save it. And I believe we're all out of warnings, and that's fantastic. It is the end of the stream. I do have other things that I need to accomplish this afternoon. So, created a stub of the eye TownsfolkManager interface began creating a townsperson data contract, added a framework project to hold common objects, common classes that will be reused throughout the system. Commit. And we're on a feature branch. Let's publish it. Off it goes to Git. I need to open up in here. I'm going to go into create contracts for the Townsfolk Manager, and I want to associate this issue as soon as it finishes loading with that branch we just published. So our feature, I'm going to pull this down. Oh, why are you being such a silly head? Here we go. We're going to associate it with create Townsfolk Manager artifacts. Great. There's that. We're in progress. We're saved. And I wish you good day. We will continue with this abstraction to concretion exercise tomorrow. I don't have any conflicts in the morning yet, so I do plan to be online at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. You can follow me on Twitch. You can find links to all of the places that I hang out at on the internet at www.thatdevelopmentdad.com. And I hope to see you all again soon.